Hi, my name is Franz and this is PhotoRap, a show about photography, its history, technique, and equipment.
This week on PhotoRap, we learn about Louis Daguerre and how his method helped shape photography. The battle for copyright heats up as music photographer Lynn Goldsmith wins a controversial case against Andy Warhol over the use of her photo. On tips, we return with asymmetrical balance and how to apply it to your photographs. And we listen to Bhong Odal, a travel photographer who shares his tips for photographers in this time of pandemic.
How did photography start? Artists and inventors in the 18th century have long been searching for a mechanical way to capture visual scenes. Along came this inventor who revolutionized the way we capture images.
On a spring day in 1839, along Paris's Boulevard du Temple, history was made. This photograph is the first ever photograph of human beings captured on camera. If you look closely, you'll see a shoe shiner working on a customer's shoe. Louis-Jacques-Mandé Daguerre was the man behind all this. He was a French inventor and a photographer recognized for the Daguerreotype process. He became known as one of the fathers of photography. The daguerreotype process is a direct positive and chemical-based process that creates a highly detailed image on a sheet of copper plated with a thin coat of silver without the use of a negative. The process required great care. After exposure to light, the plate was developed over hot mercury until an image appeared. Before this photo, people were only seen in artworks and paintings. Things changed when Daguerre introduced this process. People thought of it as magic. It was clear that Daguerre had an idea but failed so many times until he was able to perfect it. His invention opened up new possibilities in capturing images and led to the development of photography as we know it. As a photographer, there will be many instances where you'll have to take risks, and those risks might even land you a discovery of a lifetime, just like what Daguerre discovered in 1839. In photography, it's more than just framing your subject and exposing it right. You'll also need to learn and master how to take calculated risks that often don't get perfected on a first try.
And now for photography news. As a photographer, a copyright is something we should hold dear. Just recently, a US appeals court ruled in favor of Lynn Goldsmith, a photographer who filed a dispute against Andy Warhol, an artist and a photographer who used her portrait of the late singer Prince for his artwork.
Who is Lynn Goldsmith? She's a photographer who made a name in the music scene as one of the first female rock and roll photographers. On the other hand, Andy Warhol was known for both his artworks and photography. He was a leading figure in the visual art movement known as pop art. He was also known for repurposing other people's artwork to form his own. In 1987, he uttered the controversial quote, "Art is something you can get away with." In 1984, Vanity Fair licensed Goldsmith's photo of Prince for use in an illustration Warhol was commissioned to do. The artist made 15 more artworks, mostly silkscreen paintings based on the photo. Goldsmith only learned about the Prince series after the death of the pop star when Condé Nast republished the photos without crediting her. She informed the Andy Warhol Foundation in 2016 that the artwork infringed on her copyright. She then moved to register the Prince photo with the Copyright Office in November 2017 as an unpublished work. The foundation launched a preemptive strike against Goldsmith, arguing that Warhol's use of the photograph was transformative. It was then that Goldsmith countersued but lost the case, with a district court ruling in favor of the foundation that argued it was fair use. The decision was overturned by a circuit court which argues it does not follow that any secondary work that adds a new aesthetic or new expression to its source material is necessarily transformative. Goldsmith sees this latest victory as a win for photographers, an affirmation, in her words, of the rights of all photographers and visual artists to make a living by licensing the creative work.
Balance is what most people call the heart of visual appeal. This week, we continue on with our discussion on the balance technique.
This technique is the one I use the most when composing images. Last time we discussed symmetrical balance, this time we will go into asymmetrical balance. Unlike symmetrical balance where the symmetry is immediately obvious like these mirror images, asymmetrical balance is achieved by the complex and creative use of size, tone, and form of the elements. Asymmetrical balance uses unequal visual weight on either side but still creates overall visual balance as we see in this diagram. In this image, the man in the shadows on the right complements the lantern on the left. It's not just about an elderly man in an alley, it's an allegory for light and dark, an important theme in Eastern culture. In this photo, the weight of the foreground reacts to the elements behind it. It draws the eye upward and at the same time reflects the arrangement of the islands behind it. It draws invisible parallel lines within the image. In this photo, the flower mimics the windmill behind it, creating balance even if the two objects are different. Asymmetrical balance, when properly applied, can lend meaning and symbolism to your image.
Travel photography is one of the most popular forms of photography today. Since the pandemic hit the world in 2019, travel photography was also put on hold. In this episode, we speak to Bhong Odal, a travel photographer who founded Pinographers Singapore. Let's listen in as he shares his tips for travel photographers in this time of pandemic.
For me as a travel photographer, medyo mahirap ito kasi yung passion ko kailangan palagi talagang nasa labas eh. So, ang bahay naman is not a good place to find inspiration for travel photography. I'm focusing now on what I call as Project Turp, where I try to photograph anything or everything I find interesting with the quarters of my home. From time to time, I try to utilize yung creative functions ng travel camera ko ngayon. Sayang nga kabibili ko lang nung bago kong camera, bigla nagkaroon ng pandemic. This is the best time to review your old photos and how to improve them. This is the best time to read photography books. For example, yung The Photographer's Eye at saka yung Photographer's Mind by Michael Freeman. You can also watch YouTube. Try to enhance also, if you have time, your photo editing skills. For example, a picture, an old photo, I try to do something about it. I try to be creative about the photo. Kasi ako naniniwala na photography is not just what you have captured, it's how you express. Kanya-kanyang expression yan eh. You can do a lot of things actually on this time of pandemic. Kasi ngayon, marami ng bagong cameras. They are light and easy to carry. Hindi na masyadong okay yung malalaking camera ngayon. Even mobile phones can be used as your travel camera kasi ang ganda na niya eh. Ang lalaki na ng megapixels nung na ipoproduce. For me, I use those micro four thirds mirrorless cameras kasi they have more features and then I can use better lenses for it. And then they're easy to carry around. The following features na medyo mahalaga pagka bibili ka ng camera is look for the size and weight na may raw formats. Mahalaga yon para pag balik ninyo, you can still do a lot of things or you can recover for those na medyo hindi magandang kuha. For the vloggers naman, yung maganda yung may HD or 4K video. And then also, there's a lot of cameras now na merong Bluetooth feature for easy uploading and social media sharing. When time comes na pwede na tayo uling lumabas at mag-travel, ito yung mga konting tips ko. Unang-una, do research. And then you read brochures and travel books. You research the web. Marami kang makikitang mga information doon. And then, talk to friends who had been there. You can also join camera clubs kasi there's a lot of good tips that you can get from the members, especially those more senior ones. I do not mean na mas matanda. Sa Facebook naman, there's a lot of groups there that specifically cater to travel photography. You can pwede niyong pag-aralan yung mga photos na nandoon, and then you can get some techniques or you can just ask questions. It's a very good thing na makasali ka sa isang community or sa isang camera club or photographers community.
And that was PhotoRap. Join us again next time as we explore photography tips, news, and meet photographers. My name is Franz. Thank you for watching.